Hello and welcome back to the Redhedge Podcast. Today I'm here with Jason Groves. Hi Jason.
And hi Andrea, good to be here.
Nice to meet you first of all, and thank you for coming.
Not at all.
I wanted to start this episode talking props about you and how did you get to the role, especially your political path.
So I moved to London when I was 25, like so many from Australia, where I'd been involved in politics. And when you move here, one of the things that's really exciting about London is its financial services industry. And it was something that I was always really keen to work in. I started out as a journalist and then eventually sort of moved in-house for Marsh, where I've been for 18 years, but always with that interest in politics that I had from my childhood. So I was the contact between our firm and the City of London Corporation. I didn't think they looked after the insurance industry as well as they might have done. And when you complain about things enough, sometimes you need to do something about fixing it. So a couple of years ago, I decided to run for election, was successful, and I've now been a Common Councillor for the last couple of years, and it's been great fun.
Fantastic. And so you said London because of the financial route, the financial nature of this city, the City of London, is just that or anything else?
I think it's one of the great things about London, a little bit like New York, right, is that in almost any field of human endeavour that you're in, the world's great talent either moves to or spends time in London. And, financial services is its particular strength, but it also applies to the arts, right? One of the reasons that people move here is you can do a really challenging day job where you really feel you're at the center of things. But in the evening, whatever your area of interest, you're able to indulge that with, really world-class, world-class people in, whatever kind of leisure activity that you're involved in. And you get to meet some really interesting people from all over the world. I think London is the most international city anywhere in the world. And it's really fun to be playing a part in helping maintain that as well.
I do agree. I mean, I'm not English, as you can guess from the accent. I come from Italy. And I picked London out of course, not just about the career path, the opportunity set for my industry, for the hedge fund industry, because New York is as good, I think, in terms of potentials. But there is something that is intangible in London, which I strongly believe in, is the multicultural aspect, is the integration, is another level. And I think it's the highest city in the world in terms of that intangible factor, which is keeping all of us here. Because you will agree there is a bit of a challenge to stay. The temptation to leave London and the city of London, but in general London, has been a few years. A lot of my competitors, peers, colleagues left London, of course, post-Brexit and post-fiscal incentives that we have received from our original countries as well. And so it's a big commitment to stay right now. And what do you think about this overall? It's a big question, I know. But
there was a lot of talk about that after Brexit, right? And, there were certain financial institutions that moved units onto the continent. It's interesting that you're seeing quite a few of them coming back. I think it is that vibrancy and that chance to mix among your peers, but also in other industries and sort of meet people doing interesting things. That's an important part of what makes London, London. I mean, one of the interesting things in the city is that the vacancy rate of offices has barely changed since before COVID and before Brexit. It's in the single-digit percentages. And I think and we're seeing lots of building works. We can hear a little bit of outside
Indeed.
Today, right?
Yes.
And, there's lots of building going on of really class one office space in the City of London. And we're attracting people in. You'll be aware that HSBC, Clifford Chance, two of the bigger tenants in Canary Wharf, have decided that they want to relocate into the City of London because they want to be near, within this ecosystem. So I think London still retains a lot of its attraction. A lot of the consequences of Brexit, I think, were a little overplayed, perhaps. And we're still seeing that steady flow of business. I mean, London is still, I think, the most vibrant financial services centre in the world. 5 years after Brexit.
It is. The pressure that we're receiving, from my point of view, and I see this internally as well, it just, and of course, in the city of London, the banks leads the scene, and hedge fund, as we discussed briefly before, is mostly concentrated in this area in Mayfair. And my competitors, bigger competitors, are dislocated a bit branches of their business in different countries. Middle East especially has become one of the big one, and we're receiving internally a pressure from employees. They want to fiscally relocate there, and this, the pressure usually are horizontal. This is coming a bit from the bottom of the company, which is a difficult challenge for us. I don't know if you heard this feedback.
Look, it's something that we need to be, very mindful of. I was recently appointed the City of London's member lead for international markets, and so one of my responsibilities in that role will be to look at, how do we create the conditions for growth? And part of that is regulatory, making sure we've got a regulatory environment that is encouraging FDI into the UK in financial services. But, another part of that is how do we make sure that we keep talented people in the country as well? And I think, we need to, be listening to what the difficulties are that people have, the incentives they're getting from elsewhere, and make sure that we're addressing that, or having the City of London lobby government to make sure that they're aware of that and what we need to do to sort of keep those talented people here. London has always been pretty nimble about that kind of thing, and we need to, I think, in the wake of Brexit, there was, part of being part of the European Union is that the European Union did a lot of thinking for us in terms of a lot of areas, and directives would come down, we would tend in financial services to gold plate them, and they would become part of the law. And now we sort of have to think for ourselves as a country. We have to create that culture. And I'm not entirely convinced that we've done everything that we need to do yet. And, we're still learning what it means, not to, be receiving directives and gold plating them. So I think we need to learn a little bit of that, and we need to be listening and, be sensitive and be more nimble. Part of the, if there are advantages to Brexit, then being more nimble, being able to change laws that suit our particular needs should be part of that.
For me personally, what kept me here and why I don't even think about moving away is the education system. I think this feedback is shared from a lot of my competitors, peers, you want your kids to be educated in England. It's a big plus for me to stay here for their future. And I think every parent in the world of any type of industry, they're trying to do everything they can for providing for their kids as a nature of human being. But here, for me, it's particularly special. And I'm very aligned with the type of education that is provided in London specifically. Of course, everyone is hearing challenges on how sustainable would be the private education in London in case of changing of political party and potential higher costs that would be hitting the middle class quite.
Look, these are proposals from the Labour Party, right? And I hear about those challenges. I think it will be interesting to see how they're implemented. I know a lot of schools are taking measures to work out ways to cope with that. I think it's it is a system that is, as you say, very highly rated and very resilient. A lot of these schools have been around for hundreds of years. And there have been similar challenges in the past. I think the commitment to education is such that we're always looking to improve on it. I think one of the things that the city needs to do, and the city, by the way, has when the system of academies was brought in, set up a number of academies to try and encourage young people, give them a sort of taste about what it might be like, and people perhaps who come from family backgrounds that would not have had children that went to work for the city. I think one of the things that we need to do, particularly to make our sector resilient, is to make sure that we're getting that wide range of young people, that we're looking out for talented young people, that they see that there is a really fantastic and interesting career in financial services. And actually, I think this is a good moment of change, that I work in the insurance sector. When I first started in the insurance sector almost 26 years ago, it was remarkable the number of people who worked in insurance because their fathers had worked in insurance. It was a semi-hereditary industry, which seems mad, right? But that is, in living memory. And I think the opportunity to broaden the base from where we get young people is a fantastic opportunity. So I'm sure that putting VAT on school fees is going to be a challenge for some of them, but I think overall the education system is, we're positioning it well, and I think the knowledge that we've got to get a wider talent base is very positive, and it's something that the city is putting a lot of resources and energy into.
Absolutely. I definitely do think it's a challenge still, because you have high taxpayers which are tempted to leave, and then different side of changes in here, which makes it all challenging. But I'm sure London will come out with something which retain all of us. And,
I'm sure.
You will do a good job for that. We did say before we started to record that you asked me a question.
I was going, well, exactly.
Yes.
Why do hedge funds set up in Mayfair and not in the city? Because one of the things I think is great about working in the city, and when my company brings clients from overseas, they're able to see their bankers, they're able to see their lawyers, they're able to see, say, their PR agents, and they're all within a sort of 10, 15-minute walk. And sort of the glaring omission in financial services is having the hedge funds based in the city. What can the city do to attract Redhedge and your competitors to come and base yourselves in the city?
For me, the answer is very simple. It's the restaurants. It's all about that. Here it's very, very, we have a lot of restaurants around Mayfair area, and just being able to walk down for a quick lunch in a particularly specific restaurant and come back, keeping working is one of the big reason I think we are.
I hear this from so many hedge funds. So you're just confirming what I keep hearing. This is a good message for me to take back to the city. We need to make sure that when we do have good restaurants, we publicize them. And
absolutely,
yeah.
I think what I love about the city is it's the only place where you can have a space and a nice view. Here you have amazing historical buildings which they don't have a view. And I love to have an open view, and especially when you sit, like in our line of job, on a desk for so many hours, looking out the window and seeing an open space is much, much better.
And there's a sense of history as well. When I got elected, I knew a little about the history of the city, but I've discovered so much more. And you take where the Lloyd's building is, which is this iconic building, and yes, it has a great view from the top. But it is less than 50 meters from where the market was in Roman times. And, this was the market where everyone would bring all of their goods, the original sort of area of trade in 2,000 years ago. And still, all this time later, you've got the world's leading insurance market 50 meters away. It has always, that area has always been a center of commerce for an incredibly long time. So the way that the streets come together, there's been fires and wars, but, essentially it's grown up to be a center of commerce and trade, and interaction of people from different backgrounds for 2,000 years. It really is an amazing, and unique, that's an overused word, but it really is, a unique setting for that kind of business.
One thing as well to come in the city is how do you get there? If you like to drive, if you like to use a car, the traffic is a bit not an incentive to go and commute every day. But what I do time to time, I take the Uber boat to the city, and even to Greenwich. The idea is when I go east, I try to take the boat. Do you see these services to be utilized as transportation or more tourist?
Well, I think there's loads of ways you can get in. Of course, you can park your Uber boat at Tower Pier, which is in my ward. So it's much to be encouraged. But the city was a big investor in the Elizabeth line, and the Elizabeth line really has been revolutionary. I was able to get here, to Mayfair from the city in under 10 minutes. I mean, it's the Elizabeth line has been absolutely transformative. We're continuing to look for ways to invest in that infrastructure and to make it easier to get into the city. You know, we there's a big campaign about black cabs and their ability to drive around the city more freely, which I fully support, by the way. And so we're always looking for ways to, you know, enable people to come in. You know, part of what makes the city is that personal interaction. It's a very face-to-face, personal relationship kind of business. You know, that's the history of the city and financial services. And we want to be able to facilitate that and make it easier and make it, you know, once you get there, more pleasant as well to walk around. So that's a big focus of what we're doing.
Fantastic. And perhaps maybe one question I have, which is, you know, you said you were interested in politics before. From Australia, right?
From Australia,
yeah. And then you know, after your career path in the insurance, you decided again to go back in politics. So when is the right time if someone is interested to try?
I think it's when you feel you can make a difference, right? The experiences you've got in life. You know, I've known a lot of politicians, over the years, and some perhaps go in a little too young when they haven't had as much life experience, and some leave it too late and don't do it. I think it's when you feel you've got experience that can really make a change, and you can see change that needs to be made. People get very cynical about politics and about politicians, but you know, there is a lot of sacrifice, and I think most people that go into politics do it for the right reasons. That they want to make a difference, that they want to, leave a legacy on public life. And the advantage of doing what I do is I have a full-time job, and I sort of do this, in my spare time, quote unquote. But it's and it's very fulfilling, and it's very adjacent to what I'm trying to do, which is really to promote our sector. But it's I think that commitment to being an elected politician and being part of a democratic body, and also gives you wider experiences as well. So I've become involved in things that I never thought that I would be involved in. The city, for example, has its own police force, separate from the Metropolitan Police. Most people don't know that, but you can always tell, because the Met have the blue and white colours on their hats and on other pieces of uniform, and City of London Police will have red and white. So when you come into the city, you'll see red and white check rather than blue and white, and that's how you know it's City of London Police. But the City Police, they're small, but they are the lead force in the UK on economic crime and fraud. And they play a coordinating role across all UK police forces in relation to cyber. And they're also the lead force on electoral fraud as well. So which will be, particularly with all the concerns around deepfakes and misinformation, globally in this year of record number of elections, that will be a crucial role. So the city police play is a very important role on, big issues around cyber resilience for business. And, I was recently re-elected onto the City of London Police Authority Board. So I get to play a part in making sure that the police have all the resources that they need, where we're making sure that things are working well, and that we're well coordinated with business and hopefully the government departments and forces as well. So we're keeping the UK safe in terms of cyber, and economic security, I think, is a big role, and that's something that the city is very firmly entrenched in. So it's been really interesting for me to be part of that in my elected role. I mean, the city is 1,000 years old. I mean, it again is unique. It's the world's oldest continuous democracy, and it has inherited so many other functions that help keep London London, and it's a great microcosm of what it means to be. So we have the city runs the Barbican Centre, which is Europe's biggest art centre. We run the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, which is now the UK's top-rated music conservatoire, and for drama, for acting as well. We own a lot of the big green spaces in London, like Epping Forest and Hampstead Heath. They are run by the City of London, and we invest in those. So lots of things that not just promoting financial services, but lots of things that make living in London,
special.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, this is very important, because if you ask anyone what is the City of London, banks and insurance companies, and that is it. Really, there is much more.
Yeah.
And I think London is such a beautiful place because we invest in the art side of things. So, and it goes, and you can see in our office a lot of art. I think it goes parallelly. If you do and deal with something that is numbers and is somehow boring for most, goes very well together with something that is beautiful and is the nature of artistic somehow.
And taking the long-term view as well. So it's one of the other things that the city is involved in. It runs the wholesale markets for fish, meat, and vegetables that serve all of London. And the butchers have been based at Smithfield Market for 1,000 years. I think they are older than the City of London Corporation, and they're still there. You 4 a.m. you go to Smithfield Market, and you'll see the butchers cutting up the carcasses, and traders will come from all over London, take the meat and take them back and sell it to their customers. We are moving the butchers out of Smithfield. We are building a whole new facility. We've bought a site at Dagenham Dock, a brownfield site that we're redeveloping, which is on the Thames. We're moving the butchers from Smithfield. We're moving the fishmongers from Billingsgate, Canary Wharf. And hopefully, I think in the fullness of time, we would like to move the vegetable sellers from New Spitalfields in Stratford and put them all on the one site. And I think that would be a fantastic advantage for wholesale food. But the city takes a very long-term view on this, and the part of the exciting things is redeveloping the site at Smithfield. You look at very similar areas, Covent Garden. So you sort of think, well, actually, we've got a potential to create a whole new Covent Garden in the city, especially when the Museum of London, which is going into West Smithfield, moves there. So there's this whole sort of new area that is redeveloping. But that is a view sort of taken over, looking at from a hundreds of years perspective, rather than a sort of short term, which is what you get in a lot of politics. And it's really fantastic to think you're part of making a very historic decision. To do these things which will have an impact on London in the long term as well.
Absolutely, and the fact that you're doing it while you still have the touch with your day-by-day job, I think is very impressive and important, because you still are in touch with the problems that you on a day-by-day see, and you try to solve them at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, and I see there's a debate about should politicians be able to have day jobs, and I see it as very important, certainly in the role that I do. There are 125 of us who are elected for 1 square mile, and people think that's mad. In a way, it is mad, but because we look after so many things, and there are some retired members, but most of us still have day jobs, and being able to bring that expertise in, and being able to provide that, it's absolutely invaluable to the officers that work there to have that feedback of what will work, where should we be pushing. It helps keep that dynamic alive, which is very important. And it's again, people who I'm very happy to talk to people if they're thinking of standing for election. Go into it with your eyes open about what the time commitment is, because it will mean evenings and reading lots of papers. I tend to spend my weekends reading hundreds of papers of notes before committee meetings. So it is a big commitment, but you really can have a very substantial impact at the same time.
Absolutely. What about this new role that you just mentioned before? Your international side of things. What are you looking for next, and what do you think is?
I think it's really exciting that London can promote itself as, we want to attract new businesses. One of the areas that I know that the city is very keen on is sustainable finance. And if you think about, the commitments around net zero, and, there's going to be a lot of debate about those, I think, in elections, and they will come under a lot of scrutiny. But, countries around the world have made very ambitious goals about the energy transition. And if you look at how some of those ideas to achieve that, all around the world, a lot of the finance for that, a lot of the insurance for that, a lot of the legal advice for that is going to come out of London. I was couple of years ago working on a project which aimed to take solar energy from outback Australia via an undersea cable and to Singapore. And there's no question that insurance for that was going to be provided by the London insurance market. There's nowhere else in the world that could have done it. So not only is London, incredibly important for the UK's own energy transition, it's very important for the global energy transition. I don't think we talk about that enough, our role. And, that ought to be attracting a lot of investment, people coming here and saying, wow, so all these renewable energy projects, all this big infrastructure that's going to be happening over the coming decades, people are going to be looking to London to support that and make it happen. London is somewhere where you go to make big projects possible. And, that ought to be attracting more investment in there. And that's, I guess, part of my role is going to be finding out ways where we can attract that investment into London and into the city. And maybe one day, Andrea, we'll even be able to convince you to relocate to the city.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that moment, actually. It's already tempting from what you told me. Well, thank you very much for having taken the time to participate to our podcast, and it was a pleasure to meet you.
And likewise.
Get to know what you actually do on a day by day. Thank you very much. See you next time.